Hello, and welcome to today's Arizona Hip Historian Virtual Happy Hour Tour featuring Marshall Shore. My name is Brenda Holt, and I'm the Associate State Director of Community Outreach for Arizona AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence and nearly 38 million members across the nation, and over 900,000 right here in Arizona, we work to strengthen communities and we advocate for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. During the month of October, we will be focused on managing debt, building savings, and making better Social Security decisions. We will showcase AARP's relevance as a wise friend and a fierce defender. We will provide tips so that you can manage your debt, your savings, to improve your financial health. Please visit us at aarp.org/moneymap for tips, tools, and resources. AARP Money Map is a free solution that helps you create a plan of action for unplanned expenses and debt. You can also use this app to track your goals and learn new ways that budgeting can turn these goals into your reality. Let's get started with this evening's show.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Hello, good evening. I'm so happy that you can join us here tonight as we get ready for a fun time. So welcome to all of you. Some of you I know are watching on Facebook, YouTube. You know, we picked up actually last week a few folks watching us on Twitter, as well as you can watch on Twitch. So, today is a special day. It's not just October 21st, but it is also on this date back in 1927, Tucson dedicated its new Temple of Music and Arts. It's now been refurbished and is home to the Arizona Theater Company, and it's looking great. And I know they are itching to get back into it and have some shows going on. Now, also today is Back to the Future Day. So this is the date when sci-fi fans across the generations and ages come together to celebrate their love of the iconic movie Back to the Future. This is the date that Marty traveled to in order to save his kid back in the 1989 sequel. It is also Nachos Day. So now is the time to run out. Well, actually, not now. You should wait until after the show. Run to the kitchen, grab some chips, throw on some cheese, some salsa, whatever else you want. You can throw whatever you want on your nachos. That's the great thing about them. It is also a day that is asking people to wear purple shirts as awareness for bullying and harassment. Now, it is also National Reptile Day, as we get a chance for all those admirers and even some of those squeamish from afar to appreciate those creatures that in some cases live right here in our very own desert. Now, of course, it wouldn't be fall if it wasn't something pumpkin. And today it is pumpkin pie cheesecake. So if you need some dessert after your nachos, you might want to try some of that pumpkin pie cheesecake because I hear it's delicious. So what can you expect this evening? Well, we're going to have a fun show for you tonight. We've got all kinds of great stuff going on. And we'll always have a little bit of show and tell. We always have music history from Arizona, some trivia. We talk about a little town, and oh my gosh, the little town we're talking about, I had heard about but didn't really know much about it until a few days ago when I started researching it. So much fun. As well as we have a beverage and, of course, a special guest. And we have a really special guest this evening. So if this is your first time, you might be wondering, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, my name is Marshall Shore, and I am the host of Arizona History Happy Hour. I am also known as the hip historian. Now, you might wonder, what does any of that mean? Well, I got to Arizona, I can now say almost 22 years ago today. Moving here from Brooklyn, where I was working in a little Carnegie library. Well, not little, but it was definitely an old library. Traded that for a modern 1950 library. And you know what? They are now in a very fanciful space that's only a few years old. But when we moved to Arizona, we promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch that is pretty much still original. I mean, there's what my kitchen looks like, all that buttercream yellow tile with the matching appliances. And as soon as we got here, all we kept hearing about how there was no history here. But we knew that indeed was not true, because every time I would go for an adventure, I would come across so many stories from people about places, about buildings. And that is just one of the reasons why I'm doing exactly what I'm doing now. Now, I also like to think it's that post-war boom that in so many ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that either were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on the way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers, changing how we would forever live in Arizona. Now, I'm also known as the hip historian, and so that means I get to play a lot with Arizona history. And October has sure been a great month so far for exactly that. I mean, we have coming up in November, we have our haunted history tours coming up on November 13th. Coming up on the 30th of this month is Beyond the Grave at the Pioneer Cemetery, right in downtown Phoenix, where the last person was buried in 1914. We are doing an event called Beyond the Grave, honoring our ancestors. We'll have people portraying folks who are buried in the park, as well as some ways you can get communication from the beyond. We'll have a couple tarot card readers out there in the cemetery as well. And for viewers of Arizona History Happy Hour, I am happy to say we have a promo code. If you go to buy tickets and you type in the promo code AZH3, because that's Arizona History Happy Hour and it's 3 H's, you can save 20% off your tickets. So hopefully you'll get in so we can see you and we can have some fun as we learn all about the history of the cemetery and its location, as well as some of the folks that are buried there, because you'll probably be shocked by some of the names that are included in that cemetery. Also this weekend, I am out at Botanical Gardens with Strange Gardens, as I'm going to be telling a few ghost stories that are very family friendly. So bring the family out to the Desert Botanical Gardens, and we're going to have a lot of fun. That's Friday and Saturday evening. Starting up in November, we have our LGBT Story Circle coming up, and that is sponsored by the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. So there'll be more information coming on that. We have a new project, Deep Arizona, where my friend Cece and I start jumping around the state, highlighting hidden gems. And November 6th, I find out if indeed I am an Emmy winner. So looking forward to that, which will be really exciting. I don't still know if I can actually attend, even though it's a Zoom. No one's sending me a link. So, and be sure if you need to say something and you haven't been able to get it in the chat, you are welcome to throw me an email via Facebook, Instagram. It all works because I love to hear from you folks. And I've actually heard from a couple of you this week with some really cool things. But I will ask you, if you're watching on Facebook, to click on share, because you'll see why in just a moment, why you'll want to be a Sharon, because we got some great stuff. First, we're going to talk about Little Arizona, because, I love small towns. I originally grew up in a small town in Indiana before New York City. And we're going to talk about a little town called Bowie. Now, population now is just about 450 people, established back in 1911, but it has a history before that where it was called Tres Cebolas, or Three Onions in Spanish. It was also named Teviston for a frontiersman, James Tevis, Bean, as well as the Bowie precinct. So this town, is obviously now named Bowie for the fort that's nearby, Fort Bowie, where it saw 25 years of conflict between the Chiricahuas and the U.S. Army. It remains as a very visible connection to a very turbulent era of our history. So you can explore the history of Fort Bowie. As you can see, it doesn't really even look like a fort anymore. But it is kind of nestled in this valley that is known for its sunsets, its sunrises, and you can go, and it's about a mile and a half hike to get in to see the old fort. But all that big sky and clean air is so beautiful. Now, it started off actually as a railroad town, and it was the Southern Pacific Rail built a connector. It was the second transcontinental thoroughfare that went across the country. Now, just outside of it is Hot Wells Dunes. And, from the name, you would expect, why nothing else, then they did indeed discover a hot springs or a hot well. And so they were actually drilling for oil back in the late 20s. And they discovered something that shoots out a lot of water at about 106 degrees. So you can go soak in that, but not for too long, because it is 106 degrees. But it's also got dunes, which I was just I didn't realize that was Southern Arizona. So there you go. So I keep finding more and more places I need to go. Well, actually, I want to go visit. So would help if I hit the right button going the right direction. You can it also reminded me a lot of, kind of like Holbrook or Williams, some of those small towns on Route 66, because it was a thoroughfare. And so you still have some of those buildings left. So I want to go see what this gas station building looks like. That looks like a teepee. You also have Home on the Range. The building is still standing, not a hotel anymore, but now just an abandoned building. So well worth going to check out. As well as some just great old gas stations kind of hanging out, just waiting for you to pull up and fill your gas tank full of Phantom juice. It is also the birthplace of Rambo. Who knew? And so they actually celebrate every year in September. They have Rambo Day, because this is supposedly where Rambo was born, in Bowie, Arizona. So, it would not be happy hour without a cocktail. And so tonight we are enjoying a Revolution's Fortune. That's kind of a play on one of our questions for tonight. So PJ's really good. He mixes all those ingredients into one little thing. So all I need to do is just do that. And I get a little bit of Añejo Tequila, Cointreau Noir. I've never even heard of Cointreau Noir. Some fig liqueur, some blood orange, liqueur. We've got some fresh grapefruit and lemon juice, as well as a touch agave and black lava salt. So, oh, that's oh so tasty. So thank you, PJ, for an amazing cocktail, as usual. And so tonight, of course, we do have a special guest, and we have my friend Bill.
Hello, Marshall. Hello, everybody.
It is so good to see you.
You too. Good to finally be on your show.
I know. We've been talking about this for a while, so
yeah.
I'm glad we were able to make it happen. So tell people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm not a native. I moved here in '95 and just never wanted to leave. And just loved it here. And for a long time, I was a film critic for PhoenixExaminer.com. It was an online publication, and I covered the local film scene for many, many years doing that, almost 10 years of doing that. And then my interest kind of varied. I was always interested in true crime, but I started becoming more interested in that and less in film. And so I just started covering true crime and everything that Phoenix had to offer as far as that goes. What I loved about Phoenix, I grew up in LA, born and raised in LA, so there's just tons of information about stuff everybody knows about. But I noticed as I started to pour through the microfilms and stuff at the library, that was back when you had to wait in line for those stupid machines, and I was the first one there, and people would fight over them and stuff like that because they only had like 4 and only one of them worked, you know. And,
right. Yes, I remember those days.
But it was just, they call it the rabbit hole. I would kind of bookmark one article and come back to it the next day, but down in the corner there's a little blurb about something, and then it leads me on to something else, and I just had to go see it and go investigate it and everything like that, and just get the real story and check it all out.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so easy to go down those rabbit holes, especially when you're looking at history, and suddenly you find like one thing, you're like, okay, I don't have time to go down that rabbit hole, so put that on the back burner and wait till I'm having trouble sleeping, and then I can go research.
Once the Arizona Republic Archives became available online, well, the floodgates were opened, and wow, I think a lot of true crime writers and were able to just explode, in their writing and their talent, their research. It just really, I attribute a lot of that to the rise in the interest of true crime in Arizona, and why the stories are they're tragically mundane, I guess you can call them like that. They're not Manson family and stuff like that, but they're still shocking in its own way. It's like here in Arizona, why in Phoenix? Come on, why did you guys do that?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I just did an interview for a Mesa publication. We were talking about the 90th anniversary of the Winnie Ruth Drud trunk murders.
Sure. Okay.
And it was like, well, why? And it's like, who knows why? So
why talk about it, or why she did it?
Well, why hop on a train? Why have the men try? I mean, it's like there are just so many whys, and it's like, it's one of those things where it's like the more you know, the less you know, because it's like choose your own adventure. Whichever mood you're in, you can find a path that gets you to the finish line.
That's why I intentionally stay away from those. I try to find the stories that have a really strong human connection. I try to, even if it's the killer, the killer's aspect of it, why he did it, or the victims, I try to just humanize them as much as I can and walk in their shoes and walk in their shadow, and just try to, I just get totally wrapped up in the time and everything. And back when a Big Apple was still open, I would spend hours in there. If you sit there long enough, you're like, it's like you're being kind of sucked into a time warp there, where there's really no future and there's no past. It's like whatever you set your mind to, really. And I used to tell people I could teach them how to teleport through time and everything like that, and using those kind of places and stuff. Of course, it's a parking lot now, so
Sadly, yeah.
So we won't be doing that this week.
No. No, you can't go visit the sign, which is down in Maricopa.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Do you own it now, or?
I don't. I wish. We were in a little bit of a bidding war when the Arizona Vintage Sign Coalition was trying to acquire the sign.
Wow, they're like vultures. Remember everyone always said, "Hey, you're going to save me one of those groovy covered wagon lamps, right?" Oh, yeah, honey, you got it. You're regular. You got it. Yes. The gone in 60 seconds, my friend, I asked them, and I go, "Where the effer are the lamps?" And they go, "eBay." And I logged in, and $3,000, $8,000. I was like, "Why?"
Right.
So yeah, instant. What do you call it? It's kitsch. Instant history. Everyone's got to have a piece of it. Never set foot in there, but oh my God, I gotta have that. That's Arizona history.
Exactly. So I know you've come up with some trivia questions for us this evening.
I have. I tried to pick the funnest ones. the least depressing ones I could find. Sure.
So when we do trivia here at Happy Hour, basically the questions are all multiple choice. So if you don't know the answer, all you got to do is kind of throw a dart, or in this case, maybe a meat cleaver at it, and you've got a good shot of getting it right. But the best part is, once we're done with all the questions, we will come back with Bill and talk about some of those answers and kind of the mythos around some of them. And some of them are a bit larger than life. Now, you keep track on a pad and paper. You can do it. I had one friend who sent a photo of his thigh. He had written some people keep it in the chat. So whatever you would like to do.
So ladies, just, if you're watching and have nothing to write on that. Okay.
All right. So our first question is about Ernesto Miranda's last job before his death, which was A, a ride attendant at Legend City, B, a produce loader at the Deuce, C, a laborer at a furniture store, or D, a bartender at the La Ampola Tavern. So what do you think Miranda's last job was before he passed away? So question 2, Don Bowles was driving a blank the day he was assassinated. So was it A, a 76 Toyota Corolla, B, a 68 VW Beetle, C, a 74 Cadillac Seville, or D, a 76 Datsun 710? So which do you think those vehicles was he driving that fateful day in June of 1976? All right, question 3. Bob Crane was performing in this comedy at the time of his death. A, P.S. Your cat is dead. B, You're a bad man, Charlie Brown. B, Beginner's Luck, or D, Cats. Now, some of them you might be able to just cross off the list because that might not have been an option. So, you winnow them down however you need to. That's half the fun. So, all right. Moving on to question 4. Back in 1962, North Phoenix High School banned which popular dance? Was it A, the Freddie, B, the Twist, C, the Mashed Potato, or D, the Macarena? So in the early 60s, what dance was banned by North Phoenix High School? All right. Back in 1965, the Continental Theater was raided by Phoenix Vice Cops for showing which movie? A, The Sexploiters, B, The Sexy Probitism.
Pro,
Prometismo.
Probitismo.
C, The Perils of Paulette, or D.
The Sex Perils of Paulette.
Oh, see, I was thinking of the Perils of Pauline from the kids
Right.
cartoon. So The Sex Perils of Paulette, or D, All of the Above. So what was the Continental Theater rated for back in 1965? After numerous complaints, a city ordinance was passed in 1920 banning what activity? A, cat juggling, B, dog fighting, B, topless dancing, or D, palm reading. So which one of those had so many complaints that they actually had a city ordinance pass banning it? And I'm sure those cats are happy. All right, question 7. The deadliest diner in Phoenix was A, the Blue Grotto on 7th Avenue, B, Dixon's Buffet on Buckeye Road, C, Jack in the Box on Camelback Road, or D, Any Pete's Fish and Chips. So what was the deadliest diner in Phoenix? All right, back in 1969, the printing company at 3315 West Buckeye Road was referred to as A, the Smut Mill, B, the Filth Factory, C, Valley Paper Manufacturing Inc., or D, all of the above. So what was that printing company down on Buckeye and 33rd Avenue called? By many people. All right, question 9. Phoenix Police Department seized this film from the Paris Theater back in 1968. Was it A, Space Sluts A Go-Go, B, Shaving Ryan's Privates, C, Techna Beavers, or D, Box Lunch Bimbos? All right, so what movie was seized from the Paris Theater back in 1968? All right, back in 1983, Danny Rapp of Danny and the Juniors gave his last performance at this Phoenix resort before taking his own life. Was it A, the Point Tapatio Resort, B, the Phoenix Country Club, C, the Phoenician, or D, the Arizona Biltmore? So where did Danny Rapp from Danny and the Juniors give his last performance back in the early 80s? All right, while you are locking in your final answer, we are going to move on and do a little Arizona music break. And so this is always because, there's always so much music history in Arizona that people, I'm always amazed. I mean, I didn't realize Jessie Coulter was from Arizona. She was actually born here and adopted the stage name Jessie Coulter after her great uncle, Jessie Coulter, who was indeed a real-life train robber, counterfeiter, who rode with Frank and Jesse James. Her mother was an ordained minister in the Pentecostal church, and she became the church pianist at age 11. And as a teen, her music talents impressed many Arizona natives, including Dwayne Eddy, who produced her first album. They also got married. After a few years, they wound up getting divorced, so she came back to Phoenix, and that is where she met the love of her life, Waylon Jennings. He was so taken with her voice that he asked her to record a duet, and they went on to record many records together. In fact, she has 14 albums under her belt, and is indeed secured a place in Arizona music history. She is also listed as one of the inductees in the Arizona Music Hall of Fame. All right. So who's ready for some? I know I see Anita's ready for some answers. All right. So Ernesto Miranda's last job before his death was a laborer at a furniture store.
And he worked at Miller Store Fixtures at 1012 North 7th Avenue, and the structure is still there. And after his death, just about anything you could find written about him was published in the Arizona Republic, including his parole officer's last report, in which he noted that he seemed to be really turning a corner and was, really turning his life around, and had visited him there at work and everything like that.
So yeah,
by the way, and he was. That's why I put the deuce in there. He was one of his earlier jobs. I think at the time of his arrest, if I'm not mistaken, I probably am. But he, at some point in his life, he was loading produce down at the Deuce, which is kind of how it got that name. If you ask some people, it's because it was the produce section, and if you ask other people, it's because it was bordered by Second and Second. So.
Right. There's lots of reasons how it got the name the Deuce, and nobody's really.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone says, "Oh, it was this reason."
Yeah.
It was probably a mix of reasons.
Yeah.
All right. So Don Bowles was driving what kind of car the day he was assassinated? And it was a 76 Datsun 710.
Mm-hmm. Brand spanking new. And there's I'm not sure if that's a 68 VW Bug, but in the more high definition photos of it, the back window of that Volkswagen is actually laying on the rear bumper. The force of the explosion was so strong it blew that window out. Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to so many people who said they remember hearing the blast or having windows blown out because of it. So
yeah.
And then down at the Ice House was actually at that point police evidence storage down there on Fifth Avenue in Jackson. And so I know the car wound up there for quite a while before it went to DC for the museum.
Yeah, and now it's in a sort of weird limbo, isn't it? Now we don't know.
It is because, I mean, with that museum closing, there's all this debate in terms of what's going to happen to that important piece of history.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So question 3, Bob Crane was performing in this comedy at the time of his death. Beginner's Luck. And it's to him who we can credit our tonight's cocktail, Revolution's Fortune. Because it's just it's just kind of iconic that Beginner's Luck, a comedy, was not so funny for him.
It's now, let's see. Well, I wanted to say it became Buzz Fun Bar for a long time. And I went down there recently, and I wish I could tell you where it is. What is that? Shay and I can't. I'm sorry, I'm not very versed on it. But the building itself is still there, but yet they make the access to it smaller and smaller until I finally went there, and all it was a rental car agency. You couldn't go inside. All there was like a little counter in the entryway, and that was it. They weren't using any of the rest of the building, and so got to sneak in there for whatever reason.
Well, I always wonder with buildings like that, it's like if they've kind of the stage is still there in the background, or did they?
I want to know. Yeah,
right.
That'd be awesome if the seats are there and the stage is there to see what a dinner theater looked like and everything.
Oh, God. They could do a little dinner theater at the rental car agency to bring in some extra funds.
And might help, Hey, Marshall, don't you love that when you go to a notorious location and you're all excited and you're like, do you have any idea about the history of this place? And they're all just, they're yeah.
Right. They're all like, oh, no.
When I first started doing this, you know who Scott Michaels, who does the Dearly Departed tours in LA and
Yeah.
really famous with that and everything. So I was really inspired by him and the reactions he got from people when he would tell them that. And he had his own channel and everything. And I was like, that's cool. I want to do that. And I was to learn later, after meeting with Scott, I was to learn later that those were prearranged. He knew those people, and then they weren't canned or anything, but the only reason he got access was somebody knew somebody, and it wasn't a big shock. Well, I did not know that. So I go to this house, and then early on in my true crime research, and I go, and I see the people walking in. And I go, hey, excuse me, I just did you know about the history of your house? So a man was murdered right here in your porch, and it's a famous crime. The guy who did it is on death row, and they freaked out, and they were going to call the cops, and they didn't speak English very well, but they made it clear enough that they wanted me to get the hell off their property. And I was like, what? People love true crime guys. What gives? So I kind of learned my lesson. It just can't doesn't really work. You gotta do a little background first.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting because I know the old spaghetti factory there on Central has sold, and so it's going to become I think a new restaurant, and so it'll be interesting to see if any of the stories of the energies that have been hanging out in that space still continue.
There's stories of energies
or hauntings.
I'm going to have to visit your tarot card reader on Cemetery Day because I'm just striking out when it comes to paranormal. I'm like, I'm the guy they chase. I'm the guy that they chase out of the room. They go, someone is blocking the energies. Bill, are you here? Bill, I'm getting a B. Is it Bill? Bill, get the fuck out.
All right. So back in '62, North Phoenix High banned what dance? The twist.
Yes.
Why would you want to ban the twist?
Watching young people gyrate like that, it was considered really vulgar by a lot of people. The twisting, moving your hips like that, and the senior boys advisor's name was Stanley Cardon. And if you read his history, you either loved him or you hated him. He was very strict. He was very strict when it came to chaperoning dances and things like that, and being the boys' advisor, and no cuffed pants and no greased back hair and all that kind of stuff. And when they put that record on and he saw the kids doing that, he was like, nah, that's it. And he shut it down and everything, and immediately shut it down and said, you just can't do that dance here. So I wanted to go to North Phoenix High and say, hey, is the twist still banned? Do you guys do the twist, or is it still banned?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe, but cuffed pants. I'm like, it's like I think most of my pants are cuffed. I'd be in trouble there.
But the twist was already the song was already a year old, but it was the dance craze. It's kind of like flossing and all that nonsense. Where the song is all passe, but the dance,
lives on and on. Exactly. We still know the twist.
Right.
And Chevy Checker and all those other variations, the peppermint twist.
Yeah.
So many twists.
But isn't it funny? The twist was so horrifying. They lights on and, everyone break it up, no twisting. And can you imagine to be there that night,
No, I mean, that's shocking. All right. So a few years after the twist was banned, the Continental Theater was raided by Phoenix Vice cops for showing which movie? And it was indeed all of the above.
Okay. So as it's tough having to be a researcher and find all these porno movies, but I'm doggedly determined to bring the facts to my audience and everything like that. I can't just make stuff up, but seriously, it's interesting. Sex Perils of Paulette was directed by Doris Wishman, who is considered one of the best sexploitation filmmakers of all time. And that film, there's a lot of her films that are actually shown in film schools now as she had this technique to where whenever there was some sort of assault or the sex got really serious, she would cut away to an ashtray or cut away to a coffee table or something like that, and a newspaper or something, and she had all these really wild techniques. She couldn't afford sound, so what you would have the actors do is have their back to the camera, and so it was just their head like this, and they would and she would record into a tape recorder and stuff like that. So most of the dialogue you see is just people's head, the back of their heads moving and stuff like that, or somebody blocking them. It's brilliant. Yeah, she's brilliant.
Right. I mean, you work with what you got.
And Sexy Prohibitismo back in the so there was a big gray area between art and education. If it's an educational film, if it's an art film, then it's not porn or anything like that. So that was one of those phony documentaries that explores sex practices of different worlds and nations. Umpteen hundred gazillion, phony documentary covering that, and the Sexploiters is actually just a groovy 60s movie, and these are all available, I believe, on Something Weird Video. So if you've got hankering
what a great! I mean, I love that company. They have so many obscure things that nobody else has.
Oh yeah, it's just a lot of the stuff we talked about, like Von de Van Dyke's film. If it wasn't for Something Weird, who knows? We would have never found that, right? So
right, exactly. All right. So after numerous complaints, a city ordinance was passed back in 1920 banning palm reading.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So we had no TV. We had no radio. We had an industrial revolution, but we were bored as hell. And so the only entertainment was to go see your local mentalist, futurist, a stargazer, whatever, have your charts done. And it got to be, they were all kind of clustered around where the old courthouse is right now, kind of in that area. What is that? Central and Washington and all that kind of stuff. Down in that area. And there were society ladies literally lined up around, blocks, just serpentining all throughout the city, waiting in line to go see their favorite palm reader, palmist, and everything like that. And the men were they're like, man, I'm busting my ass to earn this money, and my wife is pissing it away on these stupid fortune tellers, and they would make these wild predictions. There will be a scandal in Phoenix involving a society lady of very high class, and who could that be, so and so they finally the city fathers had enough, and they said, okay, these men are working really hard for this money, and you guys are getting duped every day, so no palm reading. If you're going to do it in Mesa or do it in Tempe or something,
But don't do it here.
Don't do it in the city of Phoenix. We'll pop you on the melon, we'll smack your palm with a ruler or something.
Exactly, and nobody wants that. All right, so what was the deadliest diner in Phoenix? And it's Dixon's Buffet on Buckeye.
Yes. So I was challenged by another true crime writer. He would send me these articles of these taverns, and the headline screamed third death in 1 month, or whatever at this tavern. And he's like, and so he was like, do you think this could have been the deadliest tavern in Phoenix? So, it's got me going to find who had the highest body count. And sadly, this is just barely the tip of the iceberg. I lost count for Dixon's Buffet from 1960 to when it was leveled by the Phoenix police, which is a fascinating story in and of itself. But when it was raided and leveled, just bulldozed to the ground in 1993, I think from 1960 to 1980, I lost count after 20. And a lot of those weren't even reported. They would die in the parking lot, and people would throw them in the trunk of their car and take them to the Salt River, and violence was just so prevalent there that
Wow.
most of the time it wasn't even reported. I talked to police officers who worked down there at the time, and they said, yeah, we would just pull into it was a dirt lot behind there, and we would pull into the lot, and there would be a guy dead, fight. They took the fight outside, and so
wow.
it was incredible. And I was like, why didn't they shut it down? And apparently there was so many old territorial laws that protected this establishment, and had one of the oldest in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like grandfathered in, so they couldn't do
Yeah,
much
yeah.
with it. Wow.
Yeah, and they would, he would lose his license, but then somehow get it back. And there was a lot of corruption too, which, and I would even bring Don Bowles into this, helping to bring an end to this, because a lot of what he did in exposing this was just so far reaching that it even included this ugly little buffet, tavern in I asked a guy who he ran the Tempe Way Church across the street for 30 years from Dixon's, and I said, was it really a buffet?
Well, that's always a question, because buffet, I don't think I would eat in any of the buffets.
And he said, I think I saw a guy walk out of there with a hamburger once, but he said they weren't there for the food. Okay, nobody went there. Buffet, He said,
well, and I think the word buffet was used because it allowed them more leeway.
Yeah.
In terms of, if they were just a strict bar, they would have been guided by certain rules. But having food,
right,
even if it was very minimal.
Well, and look at how they manipulated
it. Called buffets.
Look at how they manipulated it today. If you have a bar that serves food, you can stay open. But if your cook leaves, you got to shut down. But as long as there's a guy back there making sandwiches, woohoo!
That's right. The party goes on.
Ridiculous.
All right. So question 8. So back in 1969, this printing company at 33rd Avenue and Buckeye, not far from Dixon's, I might add, was referred to, and it's all of the above.
It was the filth factory, the river of filth, the smut factory, and it was the Arizona Republic, including guys like Don Bowles, that wanted to just all operations halted. They said outrageous things like it was responsible for contaminating the youth of America, that 99% of the smut and porn that contaminates the youth of today is emanating from that cesspool right there. If there was some way we could shut it down, and this poor paper guy was just like, you don't have to read them to sell them, right? The machine goes, and then suddenly the ink quits or the machine stops, and we got to fix the ink. But are they really sitting there going, oh, this is good stuff. We're going to take over the world.
Right. No. At one point I took a tour of a printing shop that just did like newspaper inserts. Mm-hmm. You couldn't see anything because it was all going so fast that it's like you couldn't read a single thing. Well, there was reports. Somebody reported that they had seen crowds of teenage boys dumpster diving for the original plates, of the book covers, and they really they were so desperate to read this smut that they were going to get their hands all dirty and their school clothes dirty covered in ink and So needless to say, nobody shut it down, and I believe it's still in some capacity is paper manufacturing. Okay. So it's still kind of in the business, but not the same business. No, and who knows? Maybe if it is now, nobody cares. True, it's a whole different. We've got internet to worry about. All right. So the Phoenix Police Department seized a movie in 1968 from the Paris Theater, and it was. Oh wow! I would not have guessed that from the name. Technobeavers. You didn't think it was Shaving Ryan's Private? Well, I knew that wasn't it, but it was. I thought tech would have just been too new of a word. Yeah, isn't that weird? So I thought that film is going to be easy to find, and I have never been able to locate it. Technobeavers, but not that film, but another one was confiscated, and it was called The Adventures of Captain Jack or something like that, and they confiscated that, and then they
showed it in court, and the courtroom was packed. They were going to, as evidence, they were going to screen it in court, and the courtroom was packed. And so the operator of the Paris Theater turned to the gallery, the audience, and said, "Where the hell were you when I was selling tickets to this movie?"
Exactly. Not sitting in a courtroom.
Right? No, it's we're observers. I want to be shocked. At least it's a safe environment here. Okay, roll the violence.
That's right. Roll those films. All right. So back in 1983, Danny Rapp of Danny and the Juniors gave his last performance at this Phoenix resort before taking his own life. And it was the Point Tapatio.
Mm-hmm. And as you read through everything, he's performing at the Silver Lining Lounge. Ouch, ouch. Why isn't it called Blue Hair Plaza or something like that? The Blue Hair Pavilion, Silver Lining Lounge at the different point of view. The Point Tapatio was brand new at the time. And Danny Rapp, if you remember the songs that he did, and he was really trying to hang on to his fame, but he was really struggling with alcoholism, and he was acting very strange and erratically. And I read the police reports that he was harassing guests at the hotel and stuff. And when he was confronted with these police reports, he sat there in the conference room. Oh, sorry, like this, going, "It wasn't me," like this, really indifferent. So they ended their his manager asked if he could be alone with Danny, and he said, "Danny, get it together. Come on, two more shows, my brother." And Danny's like, "Okay, I'll get it together. Just, can you give me $800 to do some repairs on my truck, before the show's over and my trip home?" Sure. He gives him $800. Danny jumps in his truck and leaves. And he's heading to LA because he's going to reclaim his fame in LA. Everyone loves him in fame, in LA. He's been on Dick Clark so many times and everything. Well, how far do you think you're going to get with that, Marshall? Not very far. He got to Quartzsite, Arizona, and he knew it was over. He can't turn around and go back to Phoenix. He burned his bridges, He can't go to LA. Nobody knows him. And he pulls into Quartzsite, Arizona, and he parks. He goes to the Quartzsite Yacht Club, and he rents one of the trailers there, and he says, "I'm going to be here for the weekend." And he goes to the I keep forgetting the name of it, the Crowbar or something like that. I wish I could remember the name. There's only 2 bars in that town. But he goes into the bar, meets a guy, a local, and convinces the local to sell him a gun with ammo. The local does, and Danny kills himself in his little trailer in Quartzsite, Arizona. Ow.
Wow.
If that is not the saddest story ever, and that needs to be made into a movie, because people are like, "What a loser, what a doofus." I go, "You don't understand, man. This poor man, he's alcoholic, and he's just everything's falling apart for him, and he's just had enough. He's at the end of his tether. He wants to be famous, and all he is a rock and roll footnote, and he just imploded,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Quartzsite now, is kind of having a resurgence after being kind of featured in Nomadland.
Uh-huh.
So I know it's now getting some tourism from folks who have seen the movie and want to go see if any of those people in the movie, if they were real. And of course, they're real people that live in Quartzsite.
So I went on a vision quest. I was going through some things in my life, and so I went on a really long labored tour of Arizona and everything on my way to LA, and stopped in Quartzsite, and nobody had ever heard of that. I talked to the locals.
Wow.
And I said, "But I'm looking at a poster for Rock and Roll Days, Quartzsite Rock and Roll Days, and where people drive 50s models cars and everything." And I go, you guys,
Wow, this is part of your history.
Danny days. Come on, are you with me? And they're scratch. So 20 years from now, when I'm long dead or whatever, and they have Danny Days and Quartz, come on, please, there's my little Walk of Fame star.
That's right, your little star. Well, it's funny. So I recently had, actually just last week, had a woman email me. She was digging in her yard and found a death mask in quartzite. So we're trying to figure out kind of who, what, when, where. So I'll talk to her. See, maybe next week we can show that.
It's taking me over.
Indeed.
I'm a saloon girl with a unquenchable libido.
So, Bill, we always ask after how did everybody do? And people are already kind of, Jeff got 4 out of 10. Sarah did really well with 7 out of 10. Oh, and Leslie got 6 out of 10. Oh, and Pam did half. She got 5 and 5.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, but I always tell people, it's not what you got right or wrong. It's now that you have more stories to tell about Arizona that just kind of fit into, as you're driving down Buckeye, you can now talk about what was Dixon's, the most deadliest diner in Phoenix. And
every time you drive to LA, when you pass Quartzite, it's more than just a crappy place to stop and get gas,
Oh my gosh. Because actually we're going to talk about Quartzite in just a little bit. So yeah, I mean, they're doing some really cool stuff. Beyond like being in nomad land, yeah.
Excellent.
So Bill, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge of Phoenix true crime. So where can people find more Phoenix true crime if they would like to know more?
Please come to our Facebook page, which is called True Crime in Phoenix. And you have to be vetted a little. We had people just wanting to start ads and everything like that, but it's a really quick 5 questions. And tell me the reason you want to join us because you saw me on Marshall's show, and I will shortlist you. So he'll give you an e-ticket.
Look at that! Look at all the perks you all get for watching.
That's cool. I'm telling you. And you can find us on True Crime in Phoenix. It's a Facebook page, and we're hoping to at some point get blogs and podcasts and things like that going, and ramp it up again to its grandeur.
Indeed. Well, Bill, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
You too, Marshall, and thank you for having me. It's been great.
Indeed. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Oh, my gosh. So what a fun night. So now we're getting ready for show and tell. So I picked this up years ago. It was a little carnival. Well, not giveaway. It was for sale. Oh, there we go. For $1, you could buy this little camel with the guy. Well, actually, it was a monkey wearing a fez, but we won't go into that. So, but it got me realizing it's like, so when I go to the Botanical Gardens tomorrow to talk about a ghost story, one of my favorite to talk about is steeped in so much Arizona history that includes quartzite as well. And it is the story of the red ghost. So years ago, people found little clumps of red fur stuck in a bush. Under the bush, they found a young woman who had been trampled to death. And all they found around it were these odd footprints. Nobody knew what this horrifying beast could be. Now, today we would know that it's a camel. But people might wonder, how did camels get to Arizona? And it also has a version that is kind of like our own Headless Horseman. So Edward Beale, who was an adventurer, signed up for a task. He didn't know quite what he was doing, but he wound up leading a group of camels across northern Arizona, basically what became the old National Trail or that original alignment of Route 66. And so these camels went through. Now, they had some issues because they wouldn't cross water. But other than that, they were really great, except for the fact that people didn't know how to handle them. They weren't nice like horses. They didn't eat sugar cubes out of your hand. They were just nasty, smelly, snarling beasts. And so in order to handle them, they brought over this gentleman, Haji Ali. And so he was kind of the leader of the camels. Well, then there was a small thing that happened called the Civil War. And when that happened, they sold some of those camels. They let some of them loose in the desert. And that's how we get the story of the Red Ghost. Now, if we follow Haji Ali, he wound up in Tucson, getting married, buying some camels, and had a little business hauling things around with his camels. But he then wound up being in Quartzite, left his wife and went off and became a prospector. And when he passed away, several years later, they then built a monument that's a pyramid with a camel on top. Everyone called him High Jolly because they felt his name was too hard to say. Now, how it becomes kind of a Headless Horseman is supposedly during the Civil War, there was a young man who was enlisted, and he, like so many others, were terrified of camels. And so his friends played a little joke on him. They tied him onto the camel so he couldn't get off and put him into battle. Well, he got shot, passed away, and it is said that he was tied on so tightly that even post-mortem, he was still riding that camel around. And that's the horrifying beast that people saw. But you can still go visit High Jolly's grave up in Quartzite. They just did a great remodel of that. And so that is the story of the Red Ghost. So coming up next week, we have Carter Knack from Four Peaks. And if all works out, we might actually be live from Four Peaks. We shall see how that goes. Also next week, actually just tomorrow, I'm going to be down at the Des Botanical Gardens. We also are doing next Monday, Haunted AZ, Ghost Towns and Things, coming up next October 25th. And that is sponsored by Mesa Bookmans. So you can go there to find out how to register for that. And also, don't forget, we have Beyond the Grave, Honoring Our Ancestors. And just like you can get fast-tracked for True Crime in Phoenix, if you punch in AZH3, when you buy tickets for Beyond the Grave, you can get a discount on your tickets. Now, remember, if you have any questions, I love to hear from you. If you have suggestions, maybe you found a death mask in your backyard. Hopefully we can talk about that maybe next week. I will double check and make sure I can do that. I probably should have done that before I even mentioned it tonight, but oh well. And so remember, you can always reach out to me either on Facebook, Instagram, or email. It's all good. I love to hear from you. That's honestly how I get some of my best stories, is from just having you say, hey, what about this? I do want to give a shout out to Chris and Travis, who did that video at the very beginning for us to welcome us all to Arizona History Happy Hour, and are out. And I always want to give PJ Vader Barron, as my cocktail advisor, always gives me something good to have a sip of. So cheers to PJ. And then our outro tonight is actually going to be, I was recently on Channel 12 as we were talking about Beyond the Grave. So that's how we're going to end tonight's show. Thank you all so much. I will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week with Four Peaks.
Yeah, good morning to you guys. So we have now moved to downtown Phoenix, where there's a different cemetery that we're showing you this morning. So many places across the valley where you can learn about our ancestors, how Phoenix got started, how the valley got started in different cities, maybe even learn something about your own family if you have some roots there. So I want to introduce you to Marshall Shore. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Marshall is the hip historian, and you're kind of coordinating this whole tour at the Pioneer Cemetery.
So we're calling the event Beyond the Grave, Honoring Our Ancestors. So it's really a way for people to get in touch with Phoenix history, folks that were here before us, and a way you can also connect with your own history as well. So we're going to have a variety of things going on. We're going to have folks portraying folks who are actually buried here, telling their stories. We're also going to have some ways that you can communicate with your own ancestors. We're going to have a couple tarot card readers here, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. Just different ways that people can explore and learn about Arizona and Phoenix and themselves.
All right, great. So all of this kicks off on Saturday, October 30th, the day before Halloween. What are some fun surprises out here that people can come to see?
I think that they'll actually be amazed that there's a cemetery right next to the Capitol pretty much.
Right.
And that they may drive by it almost every day and not even realize what's here. And so that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is just create awareness of, hey, there's this really cool spot right here with so much history.
Now, a lot of us remember family and friends that have passed in a lot of different ways. So you're going to have a big altar set up here. And what can people bring to contribute to that?
So people can bring mementos, photos, things. We'll also have you can also bring notes to slide in. We'll have a book that you can make comments in. So it's really a way that people can just kind of engage with their history right in the middle of a place that is so immersed in history.
All right, Marshall, thank you so much for joining us live this morning. We really appreciate it. Again, this event is happening on Saturday, October 30th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So just like the Mesa event, it's not going to be dark and spooky. You can bring the family. You can come just by yourself, take part, learn a little bit more about Phoenix and the Valley. And, if you want to add a little bit of fun Halloween vibe to it, you can as well. Tickets are on sale, and it's definitely, a different way to enjoy the holidays, right?
Yeah.